everyone. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Spook Notes podcast, where we get academic about everything that goes bump in the night. My name is Marlayna.
I'm Connor.
And on this episode, we're actually featuring our special guest, Cory.
That's me.
That's him.
Second ever guest we've ever had on the show.
This is good.
Who's the first guest?
My brother.
Okay.
This is our first official guest.
Whoa, my brother's not official?
His family.
All right.
Yeah, and on this episode, we're also going to be talking about the movie The Lighthouse. This is going to be one of our first impressions videos where we kind of just give our raw, uncensored opinions of the movie and whether or not you should go see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we just saw it, all three of us. We went together. We had to drive 40 minutes to the nearest theater because we were that desperate to see this movie. Because I don't know about you guys, but I've been very, anticipating it a lot.
Oh, yeah, hands down.
Too.
Especially when they, pushed it back. I'm like, why? Why I gotta be this way?
And then, I don't know, also, I don't know about you guys, but I felt like there was a lot of trailers also before the movie started. I feel like more than usual.
And a lot of parody trailers, too. My favorite were the SpongeBob ones.
No, I mean literally before we saw the movie.
Oh, shit. I thought you meant, trailers for the movie. Oh,
no, as in, we were in the theater, and then there's lots of trailers playing, and I was like, I'm just waiting to get the movie started.
The anticipation was so high.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever.
But SpongeBob is good, too.
That's true. Those trailers, hands down, the best.
Oh, man. Okay, so I guess we always give our yes or no spoiler-free reaction recommendation before we actually get into deeper conversations. So, Cory, yes or no? Would you recommend The Lighthouse?
I would recommend it, yes.
Yeah. Marlayna?
Yes.
Yes, as me as well.
Wow.
Three yeses.
I feel like usually it's yeses. There's only been a few times where we've had no's.
That's true.
But, yeah.
Well, yeah, so that's the podcast. You can find us on... No, I'm kidding.
So we're going to spoiler territory where we just... Not necessarily going to give a lot of spoilers, but we do generally include them, so just watch out if you haven't seen the movie yet.
So we can include spoilers.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, we.
I don't even know how it would spoil this movie for people.
I mean, all right, okay. So I guess
maybe in itself that's a spoiler.
I guess we should just get into it. Okay, so there you go. If you haven't seen it, go watch it first and come back.
That's right.
Okay, well, just in a general sense, Cory, what did you think of The Lighthouse?
I thought, there were a couple things that really stuck out to me, but one of the things that really stuck out to me were the performances, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Pattinson and Willem Defoe are just incredible.
Yep.
I think they're amazing actors to begin with, and if anyone has any doubts about Robert Pattinson playing Batman, watch this movie, because he is moody as hell.
Emo 10,000.
Yeah.
I think, there were moments in the movie where, both actors, I think, really had an opportunity to shine.
Mm-hmm.
I think, for Willem Dafoe, I think of, that scene where he's giving the speech about, where he's cursing Winslow, Neptune come and take you with the coral and the trident and all that. That was such an amazing speech.
Yeah.
And then the reverse of that was, I feel like, when Robert Pattinson was giving that tirade about, how much he hated Willem Dafoe and, how he smells and all that stuff. I think those two, performances contrast each other.
Right. Yeah. Definitely an actor's movie, I think.
Yeah.
For sure.
But I was actually surprised because I thought that it was equally as much of the director Robert Eggers kind of flexing a little bit too, because just oh my god, some of the shots in this movie were insane, amazing. Oh man.
I don't know, man. I really like this movie. I thought the cinematography in it was excellent. I really like how they shot this movie. One thing I really, really like is, how would you say, what is that called?
The aspect ratio?
Yeah. And I think it was meant that way just to feel smaller, you're feeling more trapped.
Claustrophobic.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, that's actually really interesting. I like the black and white as well, because I feel like that really kind of dissociates you from the character, because if it's in black and white, you're not really feeling as connected, whereas if you have the characters in color, you feel more of a connection. So I really like that you feel separated from them, but still closed in. I don't know.
Mm.
I thought that
That's
was
a good point.
Yeah, for sure. Especially, and I think going off of the black and white comment, the light and the shadows were really crazy too, like really interesting. And
I mean, I could be wrong, and like obviously, other than the actual like lighthouse beam, but I feel like this was all like natural lighting, right?
Yeah.
I think
so. Like,
yeah,
especially, I think you see that most when it's the scenes at night when they're inside the lighthouse
Right.
or like the cabin or whatever, and it's like the only like lighting you get is like the candle on the
lamp.
table or the lamp on the wall, you know, and then it's like creating those shadows on their faces or like, you know, I really like, I think like the center point of this movie is like those scenes progressively throughout the movie at the dinner table because so much of it like kind of revolves around that space.
Yeah.
And then it's like, you know, Willem Dafoe on one side, Robert Pattinson on the other, and then like candlelight in the middle.
Right. And then progressively as they kind of descend into madness or whatever it is, that space becomes just completely messed
Chaotic,
up.
Yeah, like I like how it at the beginning it seems very pristine and stuff, and then like I think it very much is the idea of like the environment matching their psyche, and the more the environment becomes kind of disused or damaged, it matches what's going on in both their heads, but especially in Robert Pattinson's.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think about all the imagery and like the symbolism in the movie? Did you kind of like catch on to that or have any ideas?
I mean, I think like there's a lot of things you can take out of this movie, and it reminded me of like it reminded me of The Witch in that sense.
Yeah, for sure.
But also like an Ari Aster movie in the sense that like there's a lot of themes and stuff in this movie, and the imagery is very tied to that. Like I think just the idea of like the naturalistic kind of imagery, like when you think of like the water, and then the shoreline and the rock, and then the birds as well. I think that all it adds to it a lot.
Yeah. Do you think that there's any like deeper meaning within like?
I think there's a bunch.
Well, yeah, I feel like we have to really dissect this movie to figure out everything. But just is there one particular thing that just stands out?
Like I just keep going back to like the whole mermaid imagery, and like I don't even really know what to make of that. Like, is that tying into like sex or?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of sexual imagery. Like I think of especially like the one part that really got me was like that shot of when Robert Pattinson's having that kind of like hallucination. There's the shot of like the mermaid's like lower half, and it's obviously very vaginal.
Yeah,
And I think that just like I think there's a lot of sexuality in this movie, both like almost like a regular like a male heterosexual kind of dominant, but also there's a lot of I think homosexual undertones. Like there's obviously the scene where the two of them almost kiss, but I don't know, like I feel like there was at least 2, 3, or 4 times when Willem Dafoe's character was like mentioning how handsome Robert Pattinson was.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, you're a pretty boy.
Yeah.
Why is such like a handsome guy like you here?"
Well, and the lighthouse itself is a phallic image, right? Freud would have a field day, I think, with this movie.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
No, that's actually really good.
Yeah.
I like that. What about the seagull?
I mean,
Or is that more like
I love that
comedic
seagull.
relief?
I think like I mean, obviously it has deeper meaning in the sense that like it's his killing of the seagull that kind of brings on all the negative things that happen to them. But I think part of it is just it's kind of funny.
But why is it like one-eyed? Is there a reason why?
Well, Robert Pattinson lost an eye at the end. Right, because when you see at the very end when he's like on the rock and he's being eaten, he doesn't have one of his eyes.
So there's some connection there.
Oh, so he's the seagull.
Well, it's the idea like when Willem Dafoe was saying like it's the dead sailors' souls, and so maybe it's like that kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's a foreshadowing.
And like what he saw at the end in the light, I don't even know what to make of that.
I have no idea either. I think. I mean, I think what my thought was when I was watching this movie is that I definitely got the idea that this is just maybe my interpretation of it, but it seemed to me a lot of it was kind of allegorical for kind of like life itself. How it's like kind of like this is like a human life in a microcosm because they go to this island, they started off it's kind of very repetitive and stuff, and then at one point he becomes like addicted to alcohol and like he becomes almost an alcoholic. and then and then like he steadily gets crazier, starts losing his mind, and then he dies. Like I think it's the idea of like this is life, like and what is the point of it? Because it seems very pointless and just kind of like you're going in circles all the time.
Right.
And I think then the lighthouse, the light itself, would represent some sort of either a god or like just like some sort of higher, greater power.
And it was overwhelming, I think, too, right? Because he was screaming at that part. But then there was that whole thing too with Willem Defoe being the one going up there, and he like you kind of got the sense that he was being very secretive when he was up there. So like, was he looking into the light and just doing whatever? Or
See, I think there's some divine thing with him. Like maybe he's like an allegory for like Poseidon or some god type thing, and it's shown when he's wearing all that like nautical.
Yeah, I think there was definitely a religious like theme in it as well. Like I think of like that line when he says like, you know, are you a praying man? And then he said, well, I don't pray as much as I should, but I am God fearing. And then I thought it was interesting because Willem Dafoe never says he is. So it's almost like maybe he's like abandoned that in favor of whatever this lighthouse represents to him.
Yeah. I don't know. There's so many things that you could toss over. Was there anything in this movie that scared you? Like, were you scared?
I don't know.
I think for me it was kind of just like, and I think this is what I really loved about The Witch too, was that it just creates like a mood and a tension, and you just felt that throughout the whole movie. And I think like the other thing that I really loved about this movie was like the sound. I think the sound was really important for what he was trying to do with this movie. Like it kind of put you on edge throughout a lot of the movie, and I didn't feel that tension let up at all.
No,
throughout the movie.
Yeah, that was like one thing I was going to mention too. Is like this, not only just the score but the sound design is incredible, and I think it also is the sound of it kind of goes in the plot as well, because like you think of like that foghorn, and like how like it's just like another one of those things that's causing Robert Pattinson to just lose his mind.
Right.
Is that something that like continuously goes like all day?
I think it goes
like periodically
whenever they're powering it, and at night whenever like that engine's on.
Oh my god!
Because when it was always like when Robert Pattinson was in that thing like feeding the coal to it, and then it was like right in his ears.
Yeah, I'd lose my mind after like 5 minutes. I'd be like, "Hey guys, crazy. Come pick me up."
I'd kill some seagulls too.
Right.
I heard that all day.
See, I thought the seagulls were gonna be more in the movie. I don't know. Based on the last trailer that I saw with the seagull. I thought it was going to be a more intricate part to the movie. I didn't think he was going to kill it so soon. Which is fine. This bird was annoying, but like, whatever.
Well, he wouldn't get out of the way for Robert Pattinson. Like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know. And like, just when you hear those waves crash, like you just feel it.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought it was a very affecting movie in that regard. Is that just the sound design? Like, I mean, I would probably put it near the top of what I've seen this year so far.
And just even with like the opening sequence, like with the whole like I can't do it, but like you know what I'm talking about. It's like very like menacing sound, kind of mysterious, almost like the sea.
Well, I like how I think for me, the best part about this movie was how isolated it made you feel, and that comes down to like the sound. It comes down to, as we mentioned, the aspect ratio, and also
color.
just the color, and just like the fact that there's literally no other characters other than Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. Like some other movies, like I think of like some other movies where they're like stuck in one place, like Assault on Precinct 13 or something like that, where it's like there's like the main cast, but then there's like a few other side characters. Like literally, this is it.
Right.
Well, what about the mermaid?
Well, I mean, but they didn't have any lines.
Oh, okay. Who was the blonde person?
That was the guy that Robert Pattinson let die when he was a logger.
Okay.
Right, because he said that he like fell off the log and then he didn't save him.
Oh, because I was like, wait, is this like something like weird? Like I don't know, but okay.
Like a young Willem Dafoe or something.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, is this him? Like I don't know.
Well, I also liked how it kind of played also with the idea of almost like that. that idea that almost like Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe were the same person, just kind of like two sides of the same coin kind of idea. That I also got the sense that like it was almost like Willem Dafoe was kind of like the older version of Robert Pattinson. Like it's almost like this is what you will become, because like the idea that all Willem Dafoe ever did was lie about who he was and like what happened to him and stuff. Right. And obviously Robert Pattinson has to start lying about who he is and like everything, like how he became like kind of an alcoholic. It's almost like he's becoming that person,
right?
Which makes sense to why I think like he kills him in the end, and then like kind of then he becomes the lighthouse keeper.
Yeah,
until he dies. I mean. So
I don't know, just that shot at the very end where you see like his eye and like the seagulls like picking out his guts. That's like, pretty gross imagery. I was like, ugh.
Yeah, there was a lot of disturbing imagery, I feel like, in this movie. Like, I also think back to like that shot when Robert Pattinson's hallucinating, and then he sees like there's like Willem Dafoe, and then his eyes open up, or is it his mouth, and like he's like the lighthouse.
Oh yeah,
at night when he's like naked.
Yeah. That was pretty affecting for sure. Yeah. God. Which probably ties into the ending somehow, right? Where he's like looking into the light. Because I'm pretty sure it was Willem Dafoe's eyes that were like, it was like a spotlight like a beam. That was looking at him. So there's got to be some connection there. Maybe like the divine.
Yeah, like
maybe
what you mentioned
like, before.
He just has some weird connection with the sea, with the lighthouse.
Yeah.
And then just an average person goes in there, looks at it, and they become blind or whatever.
I think that's what I really love about like Robert Eggers, right? That's how you pronounce it. Like The Witch was kind of billed as like a New England folktale. This one's kind of like a nautical kind of tale, like a seafaring tale, and I think that like he does that really well. He accomplishes that really. Like he puts you in a particular like time period, I guess, but like in a particular place with like a particular atmosphere.
Yeah.
And like this one was just like, like you felt like lost at sea.
Like, and I think a large part of that comes down to how authentic he is with every part of it, because like they're both movies set in the past, obviously, and like with The Witch, like again like the natural lighting, but also when I read or I saw this video about it, how he like constructed all the buildings from scratch and like how it was like basically exactly like how it would be back in that day. And then obviously a big part of that is also the way they spoke in The Witch.
Right.
It felt almost Shakespearean.
Yeah.
And then this had a little bit of that as well, but obviously it's a little bit closer to the present, so it wasn't quite as difficult to understand sometimes.
Yeah.
But it was
I
still
understood this one more than The Witch.
Yeah.
Really? I understood The Witch more than this one.
Really?
Maybe it was just because of their accents that I was like, oh, holy smokes.
There were a few times when they were like muttering or something, they were like, especially Willem Dafoe with that kind of like crazy sea captain accent. I was like, what?
There were
what?
Yeah. I say. There were lines that he was just giving it his all.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, take a breath. But he just kept going and he kept going, and I was like, this is like it was unbelievable. Like,
it's almost like a soliloquy that he's given out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. Unreal.
I don't know. Is there anything else that particularly stands out to you guys? Is something you'd like to mention?
No, not that I know. Like, I feel like this is definitely going to be a movie that I want to do more research on to fully appreciate it and understand everything that goes on it. But first impression wise, I'm pretty sure I've said everything I needed to say.
Okay, well, let me ask you this then, guys. Was there anything you didn't like about the movie?
Jesus. I would say sometimes like it was a little hard to understand what they were saying, but other than that, like I really liked the imagery. The acting was really good. Just how it was shot was great. I don't know. All around a good time.
Is there anything that you didn't like, or
I not really. I thought it was really really good.
I thought it was great.
I would say like there were a few times, even though I don't think I really can't think of anything I would take out, but I will say there's maybe a few times where I did feel the length a little bit because it is almost a 2-hour long movie, which is pretty long.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know what I would take out because so much of it is so good that it feels so artistic that I don't know what I would take out. No, there's really nothing I didn't like about it. Maybe like there was a lot of farts in the movie,
No, man, that was the best part of the movie.
which like I get it because like it's all about like just another way that Willem Dafoe is like constantly annoying Robert Pattinson and stuff like that. And then obviously it concludes in that, like I mentioned before, that tirade about when he's like saying how stinky he is.
Right.
But there's a lot of weird fart jokes and fart humor in it.
I feel like this really depicts our relationship.
Well,
William Defoe, and I'm like, holy smokes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
See, you agree. You can't even disagree with me in that one.
Does that make me one of the seagulls then?
No, because you don't annoy. I don't know. Maybe you're like the guy who I let die.
Okay.
In the logging camp.
Just a whole bunch of timber falling down on me.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, what about you?
I don't even know. Like, I think I would feel the length a little bit sometimes, but I feel like if I can bring up Joker again, I feel like I said before, Joker is a movie that I really loved and appreciated, but I'd have to be in the mood to watch it. And I feel like with this director, you really do have to be in that mindset of like, okay, like I'm going to sit down and I'm going to kind of get immersed into whatever it is he's doing, because he's doing something, but
yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I feel like it's not the kind of movie I'd put on at a party.
Right.
And just kind of like half watch it. I feel like I would need to watch it.
Yeah.
But I think it demands that, just like as we mentioned before, in the sound, and it's in just in this aspect ratio alone, it literally demands your eyes focused on the screen.
Right.
And then obviously in their performances.
Yeah. Yeah.
So. Well, yeah. I think we're struggling a little bit here because this is the kind of movie that you would have to research. You'd have to really think about it, write down your ideas, because I really do think there's a lot in here to dissect.
Yeah, and none of us are sailors, so I don't really know what half the shit means. So yeah, I think some research would do all of us good.
I do think actually it does. What you said made me think of something. Like, it does do a good job of kind of like. Not only the nautical kind of imagery and stuff like that, but also like almost like a nautical like mythology as part of it. Like the idea of like, you know, the lighthouse being of like such extreme importance, and like you know, the whole idea of like the merfolk and what they represent to sailors. Because I mean, I'm not going to go too far into it because this is like my interpretation of the movie, but like the idea of like, when you're out at sea and that kind of isolation, and it drives you crazy, but it also makes you longing for that human connection with people other than, you know, the people you're with. And so like, what's like the most ideal example of that is like a beautiful woman at sea, and that's where like the merfolk idea comes in.
Right.
Which is why I think like from the very beginning, when he like finds that idol, he becomes like obsessed with it.
Yeah. Well, because that's what sirens do, right? Like they lure sailors typically into the water, I think. Yeah. To die. So.
And they're very like mesmeric, like the lighthouse itself. Like the idea of like mesmerizing and kind of enchanting, and then causing that madness.
Right.
Wow. I think we've just uncovered the whole movie right there. That's good. I like it. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah. So I don't know. Should we give our final thoughts?
Sure.
And do you want ratings?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know. What do you guys have any final thoughts, like takeaways from this?
I don't know. I just thought it was a really good movie. I thought it was really interesting. I liked how different it was compared to other horror movies. Would you even call this a horror movie?
Psychological thriller?
It definitely has horrific elements to it. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Like, I think like some of the things that happen in the movie, you could say like they're horrific.
Right.
It's the same. I would say I mean, obviously they're very, very different movies, but it's almost like in the same vein as like Silence of the Lambs, where you could argue it's not really a horror movie, but I would say there's things in the Silence of the Lambs that are very horrific.
Yeah.
Right. When I watched it, even when I saw the trailer, I got huge Lovecraft vibes from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I don't even know, like, that's like cosmic horror, I guess, but I wouldn't necessarily identify this as cosmic horror, but definitely horrific elements in terms of the imagery.
There's also another thing that made me think of. There's a short story by, I think it's by Robert Matheson, and I think it's called like The Lighthouse or something like that. And it's about like these two men in like this isolated lighthouse, and a lot of it takes place at night, and it's very interesting. But yeah.
Well, yeah, that's I guess my final thoughts.
You want me to go?
Were you going?
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on.
Okay, well, just to kind of wrap up my thoughts, I think that the best thing this movie does is it really makes you believe that these two people are gonna go insane together and just beat the shit out of each other and just kind of like just destroy each other, because they're so at odds, they're so opposites, but at the same time so familiar and very like not singular, but like they seem to go together, that I think like what happens is inevitable almost. And another thing that it made me think of was The Shining.
Yep. Best movie ever made.
I just think like it's. I think this is probably the best version of The Shining since The Shining. It's that same concept of this small group of people in this isolated area together for some unknown amount of time, and all they have to do is go crazy.
Right.
I love that kind of movie. That's how I feel in this apartment. I'm kidding. I'm so kidding.
So applicable to real life.
Right.
So applicable. I don't know what's going to happen when I leave, but...
Oh, jeez. We'll start...
Yeah.
Why just
started singing
spill your
shanties.
beans? Yeah.
Then watch out.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are your final thoughts?
I think for me, like, just, again, the two things that stick out the most are the acting. I think Robert Pattinson and Willem Defoe, like, in particular, I think Willem Defoe deserves to be recognized for this role because he's just out of this world, unbelievable. And then the sound, like just the sound, like the music, the sound effects, just the sound design is just unbelievable in this movie because it is like you feel every creak of the stair and like you hear the waves crashing, but you feel it. And I think that is one of the highlights of the movie for me.
Yeah. I agree.
Another thing, like, didn't mention before, but it made me think of that, is that I think a thing I really appreciate with this movie is, like, when do we get a chance to see a black and white movie in theaters nowadays? Like, you never see that, obviously. And so, for me, like, I'm a huge fan of black and white movies, so, like, I just think seeing that made me really like it more, that I got to see a black and white movie in that aspect ratio on the big screen.
Yeah.
And possibly filmed with all natural lighting, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'd have to look into that. I don't know for sure, but
well,
it looks
like it.
I would think so.
I would think so
because it looked pretty authentic. Yeah.
So should we give our ratings?
Yeah. How many lighthouses?
How many seagulls?
Yeah. How many seagulls out of 10 we could give this movie? All right. Who wants to? Should I go first?
Yeah, you go first. We'll go this way.
I'd give it a solid 9.5 seagulls.
Wow.
You always get the points. I just.
Why? Am I supposed to give it?
No, you don't have to.
Yeah, 9.5 then.
There's only half a seagull left. Remember,
There's only
Robert?
one eye.
That's true. Nine regular seagulls and one beaten to death half seagull. Okay, yeah, mine's a little bit more simple than that. Mine's 10. This is a 10. Like when I was really thinking about like what didn't I like about this movie?
Wow.
Nothing. Like I mentioned the length, but even then I don't really think I would take anything out of it. And I just think like I feel like this is a movie made for me. Like somebody was like, what if we made like a movie Connor Henderson would really love? What if we made it black and white, filmed in Canada?
Really?
It was filmed in Nova Scotia.
Oh fuck.
It's nautical.
That I believe.
Yeah, it's nautical themed, which I love nautical stuff, and it's centered around amazing acting by an amazing director. So yeah,
kill some seagulls along the way. It's
yeah. I hate seagulls.
There you go.
I hate seagulls.
Your movie.
I hate seagulls, even though I'm giving it 10 seagulls out of 10. I'm giving the max amount of seagulls I can.
All right, what's your,
I think I would probably say 8.5h seagulls.
Oh wow,
I
critical.
give it the 0.5. Yeah. I only give whole number seagulls.
Well, I get the other half of.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and you know what? That rating might go up watching it again, but I mean, I didn't like not like the movie.
Mm-hmm. Well,
It's
8.5 is still a pretty good rating.
Yeah,
It's pretty close to perfect.
yeah.
Wow.
Alrighty.
Yeah. Well, I feel like this is almost the kind of movie that we might do an episode again in the future when we actually researched a little bit more, like really dissected those themes.
That's right.
We'll write essays and then we'll come back and
Yes.
You're like,
yeah.
here guys,
Here's
here's
my
my
20
abstract. Right.
Oh my god.
All right, Connor, where can you find us?
Well, I have to do that. Usually you do that.
Oh my god. Okay, you can find us on all the super hot social media platforms such as YouTube, SoundCloud, and iTunes, all under the sick handle Spook Notes. If you have any question, comments, and hopefully no concerns, you can shoot us up an email at spooknotes@gmail.com. Let us know what you think about the movie The Lighthouse. We would love to hear your opinions. You know, we are 2 people stranded in this apartment. Well, three people.
3 people.
3 people.
Or 2 people in a seagull, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so please let us know what you think so I don't go insane.
Yeah, well, and thank you to our special
Yes,
guest,
thank
Cory.
you for being here today.
Anytime.
Why don't you? I always, whenever I ask, when we had our other guest on, Justin, on the very first episode, I said just so the viewers get a kind of idea of your horror history or your horror opinions. I asked him what his favorite horror movie was, and he said Scream. So before you go, Cory, what's your favorite horror movie of all time? Just so the the listeners have an idea of what kind of horror fan you are.
Yeah. I think I would probably put Halloween at the top of my list.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right.
John Carpenter's Halloween.
It's a solid pick.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being on the
Yes,
episode,
thank
Cory.
Thanks
you.
for having
Thank
me.
you.
We'll hopefully have you back soon.
Yes.
And in the meantime,
Don't forget to cite the spook
wait, was I
notes.
supposed to go to?
Oh my god. Okay, let's try this again. All 3. Okay,
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Don't forget to cite the spook notes.
Bye.